Hey guys, how are you? Welcome to a new episode of this Impact X podcast. I'm Daniel Marcos, author of Impact X. I'm here with my good friend, Mike Michalowicz. How are you, Mike?
I'm well, Daniel. How are you?
Great to see you again. Just a side story, guys. I know Mike probably 10, 19, 18 years ago. We went together through a program in MIT called Birthing of Giants, and then its continuation called Gathering of Titans. So we've been meeting every year for the last 20 years back in MIT for 5 days. They've been game-changing.
Yes.
But then also we've been in forum for some years now.
Right.
And having Mike as one of my advisors and part of the forum, and also seeing Mike's trajectory, it's been amazing. So super excited, amigo, to have you here.
Thank you, brother.
So let me start here. So you were an entrepreneur like all of us.
Sure.
And then you went to the dark side. Now you went to write books. So why are you doing what you're doing?
Well, I like many of our BOG brethren, I sold a company. I actually sold 2 companies, became a millionaire. I thought I had everything figured out, and this ego kicked in. I became an angel investor. I was like, oh, that's what everyone else does, and started investing. I had no clue what I was doing, and I lost everything. I lost everything: my home, my possessions, bankrupted myself without declaring bankruptcy, just liquidated my remaining assets. And I became a big restart. I went through depression. I actually skipped GOT or BOG before it was GOT for 2 years. I couldn't face the group. Not that anyone knew, but I still couldn't face the group. And I started to document what I didn't understand about entrepreneurship. And it was everything. I didn't understand how to be profitable, really. I didn't understand how to be efficient. And so I started to write down what I needed to learn. As I researched it and found solutions that were not documented elsewhere, it's like, oh my gosh, if I do this, it works. I need to share it with other people. That's why I became an author. And so now for the last almost 15 years, I've been an author. That's what I do full time. I'm privileged to be a shareholder in quite a few small businesses too, but I'm a full-time author, and I write books to serve me selfishly and to serve anyone who reads them.
So you start writing it for you, really, the guides that you need for you to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, in most cases. I mean, since I've written some books, I get reader feedback saying, hey, I'm really struggling with selling. Can you write a book on selling? Or I'm struggling on recruiting employees. And maybe that wasn't a struggle I had, but it definitely invokes curiosity of how I can amplify the game there. So those are 2 books I'm working on. I'm working on right now a book on employee engagement, how to raise the bar for employees to get them to act like owners. Really That's the common feedback. And then after that is probably a book on selling. Needs I have, but also needs my readership has.
So if you have to describe the best reader for your books, who's the best reader? Who's the ideal?
Best reader, yeah, micro enterprise. So anyone under 5 million is how I qualify that. Generally, my reader usually has their first few employees on board. So that's a company that's doing at least 3, maybe 400,000, sometimes 500,000, and maybe 1.5, 2 million. After you get to that 2 million mark, my businesses are 6 million. You have to start building a leadership team. Like, you can't do everything yourself. So there's a fundamental shift. And I do touch that space, but really my core folks are those 500,000 to 2 million, definitely under 5.
Right. And now you're relaunching a book, Clockwork.
Yeah. So you have the original. This is the brand new. This is the galley.
This is the original. So that's a new version.
Revise and expand. Yeah. So what happened is, I'm lucky, Daniel. I get an email from a reader probably every half hour, maybe even 15 minutes, 24/7, 365, all the time, because I invite people to write to me. And I asked for a critical feedback. And with Clockwork, there were some points of confusion. The core competency, the most important part of a business, is what I call the QBR, the Queen Bee role, explained in the book, but people are struggling to get there. People are telling me, I'm using Clockwork, but I'm afraid to share it with my employees because I don't want them thinking I'm taking a vacation on their sweat. Can you include this? So I reworked the book. It's 60% brand new content. The core framework stays the same, but I've positioned in a way that's easier to consume, faster to get results, and employees are engaged when reading it.
Nice. So in the past edition, what was the part that impacted the most? If you get all these emails.
It was the QBR. So I'll dig a little deeper into it. I'm a big fan of biomimicry. Actually, many of my books are based upon behavioral psychology and biomimicry. I usually blend the 2. So behavioral psychology is how our mind operates in kind of default mode and how we can leverage that. Biomimicry is something that nature does, and we can translate it sometimes to a personal or business application. Well, the QBR came about when I was studying beehives. Bees are very efficient at growing their organizations. It's like, oh, there may be a parallel here. Every bee knows that the most critical function in a beehive is the production of eggs, which the queen bee does. And if eggs aren't being produced, the entire hive is jeopardized. So while it's important, it collects pollen and nectar, it's important that they defend the hive. Nothing trumps the need to produce eggs. Now, the analogy kind of breaks loose a little bit here because some people say, oh, there's one person who's most important. No, not one person. It's the queen bee role, the function of producing eggs. And even in a beehive, if the queen bee is not producing eggs, they'll kill her and they'll spawn a new queen bee. So that person, that thing is expendable. We must produce eggs. Well, in business, one analogy I use is FedEx. FedEx promises to deliver packages on time. They do many things. They have print shops and they have a logistics department and so forth. But of all those things, nothing trumps the logistics itself. Like literally FedEx come out today and say, we've decided to stop doing logistics. We're just going to put everyone on customer service. The headline news would be like, FedEx doesn't know where an effing package is, but they're nice about it. The multi-billion-dollar operation will go out of business in weeks. But ironically, they could ditch the customer service and just do everything on logistics. Then the headline says, FedEx not answering the phones, but the packages are being delivered on time. They'll be hurt, but they won't be compromised to the point of going under. We have to know what our logistics equivalent is in our own business. That's the QBR.
Okay. So, and in small business around the world, what's a QBR? What's a typical thing that the entrepreneur has to focus on that usually they don't?
Yeah. So I don't know if there is a typical, and that's the problem. We first have to figure out, what do we stake our reputation on? I call it the big promise. I'll give you an example. My small business as an author, I promise to simplify entrepreneurship. So when someone reads one of my books, it'll take a gross, large concept and make it a simple, consumable concept. That's simplifying entrepreneurship. Of all the activities I do, like we're doing an interview now, I do speaking engagements, podcasts, of all things I do, what one thing is most important to simplifying entrepreneurship is writing books, writing hopefully great books. So my QBR is write great books. If today I said, screw the books, I'll just throw out junk, like sadly we see circulating around, that would compromise everything about my reputation and I'm done. Now I could stop doing interviews, stop speaking, but if I produce extraordinary books, the business will continue being of service. So ask yourself, any small business right now can say, what is the big promise I make to my customers? What's the one thing I want to most be known for? Then we ask ourselves the activity that most supports that. That's the QBR. And if you don't know what you're known for, call your clients and say, hey, why do you keep hiring us? Why do you keep buying from us? They'll tell you, and then figure out what's the activity that most makes that promise delivered. That's your QBR.
So people to FedEx, they will say, I don't care if you don't answer your phone, as long as you deliver on time. I don't need to call your phone.
Right. Why do we call FedEx? Not because it's the happiness, they're not in the business of delivering happiness. They're in the business of delivering a package on freaking time. Now, here's the irony. Zappos, who also sends packages, promises to deliver happiness. They will sit on the phone with you for hours. You can accidentally order a pizza and they'll deliver it to you. So they make a different promise. We're going to give you an extraordinary experience and treat you like a VIP. So they do it through their customer service department.
So what do you do with small business? I've seen that many of small business, they're trying to be the CEO of the company or the head of the company.
Yeah.
They're also usually the head of sales.
Yeah. And you head of service. Yeah, they do everything.
So how do you guide them, or what they have to do to be able to focus in whatever is important for the client? They said, hey, if I don't sell, I don't have money to pay payroll. So they're selling and not necessarily delivering.
Correct. And there's a thing called the double helix trap. So that's where sales owners selling because they don't have enough demand. Then they sell, demand starts increasing. So now they got flipped to serving it. But when they're serving it, they can't sell. So it reverts. Now sales are down, delivery is high, and they start panicking and say, focus on sales. And it starts this double helix, kind of like a DNA drawing, where one's up when the other one's down. The key is this. I found in most businesses I analyzed, the owner is the best salesperson. Even Amazon, like what's his name? Bezos is not like, when you place an order on Amazon, he's not running to the line to pack your box and ship it to you, but he's definitely involved in sales, not the individual clicks, but he's selling the next city who's going to have Amazon, who's going to host that city. So owners inevitably should be in the sale, but usually the higher and higher level. And so we got to bring in people. The first way to get out of that double helix is get other doers. And actually, I talk about that in the book, is if you're doing the work, chances are you're impeding the company. So bring in people to do the deliverables of your service or product, elevate yourself to higher level sales, and then fill in the lower level sales with order takers and so forth, and build your way to higher and higher level sales. Inevitably, even at the biggest companies like an Amazon, like Elon Musk, the Tesla, he is still selling. It's just at the highest levels.
So this reminds me of an interview the other day I was seeing of Jeff Bezos. This analyst was interviewing him or something, and he congratulated him for a great quarter. And the guy said, "You congratulate me for something I did 3 years ago. This quarter was planned 3 years ago, and I hired the right people, did the right strategy and everything 3 years ago. You congratulate me today. You should have congratulated me 3 years ago." And the guy said, "Well, results are now." But the guy said that decision was taken 3 years ago.
There's 4 stages of a business, and I write about it in Clockwork, called the 4 Ds. There is a stage called doing. And by the way, stage is maybe not the right choice of word, because a business always must be doing the deliverables, but the entrepreneur will elevate them through these 4 stages to the highest level. So doing, when you start up a business, you got to do the work as an entrepreneur. But then you start extracting yourself from doing work and you go to what's called the deciding level. I would say about 95% of small business is stuck in the deciding level and will never have more than 2 or 3 employees. What deciding is the business owners making all the decisions for the team. So the team is just task rabbits. I go do something, I come back and say, what now? What next? One brain, there's actually a Hindu goddess named Kali, which is one female figurehead with like 8 arms. That's what our business becomes. We need to transition from deciding to what's called delegating. And ironically, we often say we're delegating when we're actually deciding for others. Delegation is not the assignment of tasks and task rabbiting. Delegating is the assignment of outcomes. It's where you and I say, I work for you. You and I agree to what is expected in this outcome. Like, we got to do invoicing. And you say, Mike, you got to do invoicing, but why do we do it? Well, it's the way we generate revenue. It's also a way to be representing our work to our clients fairly, to bill timely so we can get paid, but make sure that there's a reflection of the work we've done. Then what you do as an owner, you say, your job is to get us that outcome. We have a best practice, what we've done historically to get there, but find new ways. And when I come back with a question saying, I don't know what to do now, your job as the owner is to say, I'm not going to tell you, Mike, I've hired you for what's on your head there, that brain, go figure us out. That's where the employees start taking ownership over their responsibilities, as opposed to just saying, yes, sir, I'll do whatever you say, sir. That actually brings freedom to the business, because now the owner isn't the one brain for the business. Now the business can start scaling because people are individually thinking about their roles. They've taken ownership. That moves us on to the highest level. The owner can move on to designing. Designing is where we have outcomes we intend in the future, like Bezos 3 years out, for example, and start strategically choreographing the business to get there.
So it's do,
decide,
delegate. Okay. All right.
then design. Exactly.
Love it. And that's on Clockwork.
That's in Clockwork. Yeah.
On the new
Clockwork
one.
Revised and Expanded. Yeah. It's in that one too, the original.
Hey, there's 3 parts that I really like. So let me go to 3 key ideas.
Yeah.
The first one, limit the work time to be more productive.
Yeah, freaking wild. And there's been studies now, after I wrote the original book, and I've included in the new book, are emanating out of Europe, particularly England. What they found, and this is really the knowledge worker, this is crazy. The average person is productive 3.2 hours per day, regardless of the hours worked. So I can work a 5-hour day or an 8 or a 12, but I'm producing on average 3.2 hours of work. So if you contain or reduce the amount of work hours, you spend less if you're paying by the hour, and you're getting the same results. We've tested in my own companies here. We give people a worksheet that used to be an 8-hour worksheet saying, here, complete this in your day. Most people work a 4-hour day here. We have a lot of part-time employees. I'm a huge fan, and they're getting 8 hours of work done. Wow. We all need to downtime and recover. It's natural. It's a natural human requirement. Just part-time people are doing it on their own time as opposed to the business time. So that was a fascinating thing. There's also research finding that a 4-day work week may be more productive. It was 100 years ago that Ford became the innovator and moved us from a 6-day work week down to a 5-day work week. They may have moved us from a 10 to 16-hour workday to an 8-hour workday and didn't change people's pay. And their argument, Henry Ford said, will be more productive. And no one believed it. And then years later, he was proven to be true, and it became the world standard. I think England may be leading on us on this 4-day work week, and maybe reducing the hours too, and getting
Or
the
they
same or
work
higher
with
results.
4 hours.
4-day work week of maybe 4 to 5 hours a day.
So
That
instead,
may
instead
be
of
the
working
future.
40 hours, you're going to be working 20.
20, and 20 may be more productive for knowledge workers, because
Wow.
knowledge is not output, it's considerate thought.
Yeah.
And think about when you're drained and you have, what's that word when you're exhausted and you can't think anymore? Decision fatigue, I think the word is phrase. Decision fatigue happens very quickly. And so the more information is thrust at us, the harder it is to have appropriate thought. We may not be doing as much, but we may be making decisions that are much more effective for the business. So the impact may be much greater. We're testing it. We're seeing in Europe, they're trying to try out the 4-day work week. It's still an 8-hour day, but we'll see. Maybe we're approaching a 20-hour work week. We'll see.
So this thing that a lot of us are working from home, I love it.
I love it too.
Also, my team are very productive doing that. And people say, well, but they don't probably work the 8 hours or the 10 hours, whatever. I don't care. They have their KPIs. They know exactly what they have to accomplish. And if they accomplish in 4 hours, I'm happy.
Right. It's about the result. So there was a great test from Best Buy called ROW, Results-Oriented Work Environment. It was the first mass test in the US that I know of where they said, you're not measured by your time, you're measured by your productivity. And it succeeded in many ways. They morphed it and it ultimately went away. But it brought rise to this new concept that measure people's output, not the time they spent.
So let me go to the key idea number 2 that I want to discuss. Measure your metrics. Entrepreneurs are terrible to measure and know their numbers.
Data is irrefutable. My own company went through this. We had a sales challenge. I own an organization of accountants and bookkeepers. We have 600 members now, and we've been plateaued in the U.S. location around 350 members or so, and couldn't get past it. And we had an internal meeting with our leaders, and the feedback I was getting was, I think it's this, I feel it's that. It was tons of feeling and thought. I'm like, all right, all of us, let's get the data. And we all looked at the numbers and we were all astounded by the results. The problem was our sales script. The way you pitch the service to say is different than you did 3 years ago, but our script never morphed or changed. So it was funny. We thought it was a retention issue. We weren't caring for customers enough. We thought the prices were wrong. It was simply our sales script hadn't changed. And we only proved that by seeing that we're losing people during the sales engagement process, the call, and then we changed the script. And then the data came back. It's like, oh my gosh, we're just saying the wrong words. It was that simple. But
so how do you recommend entrepreneurs to get data? Because I tell them, hey, read the data. It's okay, I get it. Where do I get the data? Like they have no idea where to get the data.
Yeah, so your accounting system doesn't lie. I mean, that's the starting point, is to go in there and look at what's selling, what's trending. The thing is, first you have to see what the direction of your business is. So the first thing we did is we looked at, in our accounting system, we said, how many clients did we get in 2018? Then 2019, then 20, real simple stuff. And we saw the numbers growing, but we saw that on a percentage basis, it was starting to go flat. Then we ran hypothesis and said, maybe it's our script. Maybe it's the person doing the call. So we tried different variables. It's a form of split testing. So we actually tried 3 different sales reps, and that was one set. It was a brand new data set. So we had each person, Billy Ann was one, Ron, do these calls for 100 calls, and we saw who had the best conversion rate. It was actually the same across the board, roughly. So we said, that's probably not it. Then we said, maybe it's what we're saying. We changed the script, and all of a sudden we saw a bump across the board, and we said, that looks like it. It's it. That's it. And now we went into a full out test. So if you don't have the data, start testing and start collecting. Here's one word of warning. There's no such thing as a data set of one. One example or one experience is not indicative of the future. And so many entrepreneurs say, oh, I changed that Facebook ad. I got my first client. I got my ad. No way. That could have just been a lucky shot. And sometimes you run a Facebook ad and you get no one to sign up on that first day. And you're like, it sucks. No, those are data sets of one. We have to get to statistical probability.
So at Growth Institute, we have this saying that I think we got from Google: in God we trust, everyone else bring your data.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
When they were going, I believe. No.
Yeah, no, I believe, I think. Yeah, no, that's.
Look, and by the way, my employees have proved me wrong a couple of times. That I say something and say like, you're wrong. And I was like, no, I know. And they say like, let me bring you the data. And they bring the data. It was crazy.
Yeah, we've had very hard conversations, argumentative and not even like, comfortable arguments, not like, hey, I think this. No, like you're a jackass for saying that. No, Mike, you're a jackass. And then we pull out the data. And sometimes I've had to eat my own words and say, oops, I'm wrong. And sometimes someone else had too. But the data doesn't lie.
So quick story that happened to us recently. We have a program that we've launched. We launched like 5 or 6 times and it didn't work sometimes. But we launched and we had like 5 different prices. So we were having a conversation, what's the right pricing for this product? And we were just guessing like, well, I think it's this and what I think and whatever. And we were having this conversation. And one of my team members said, let's get the data. And I was like, but no one can really understand the data that we have. Let me hire someone in Upwork. Went to Upwork, look for a physics, mathematics guy, whatever. So they want to understand what's the best pricing for this product. And the guy asked these questions, send us an Excel spreadsheet and said, fill out the data. And we fill out the data like for 6 years of data of this product, payment, conversion rate, how many times they stay on the, or months they stay on the membership, all of this. We sent it back. And 2 weeks later, he came back with an answer. So the best pricing is $99 a month. Let me tell you why. It was
wow.
Brilliant.
And how did it serve you? Was it a good rollout?
Brilliant. We haven't changed the price since. We've never touched it since.
Yeah.
But I'm a physical mathematical guy that we have no one on staff. We paid him, I think, like $150 per hour, took 7 hours or whatever, and gave us a response.
That's fantastic.
Loved it. All right. Last key idea from the book. Go on a 4-week vacation to test your business. Why is that important?
Yeah. So this is the idea I get the most pushback from, but of all the ideas I share in the book, it is the most important. So I studied over the course now of all my work, but thousands of businesses. For this book specifically, we surveyed hundreds of businesses and I deep dove in at least 20. I found that in every business we've studied and surveyed over time, that over 95% live on monthly cycles. How'd you do this month? How'd you do that month? And everything happens within that month. We attract clients, we convert them to, or prospects, we convert them to clients, we collect revenue, we have to engage employees. All the elements of the business happen within a monthly cycle. Therefore, my conclusion was, if the business owner isn't available for simply 1 month, then the business can go full cycle and it can repeat that into perpetuity. If you can leave for 4 weeks, you can leave forever. So what I challenge people to do is commit to a 4-week vacation. If your response is you have an immediate heart attack, like, are you kidding me? That means you haven't systematized your business. That's a call to action right there. If you devote to doing this, you will shift from doing work to designing outcomes. How do I systematize all the stuff I'm doing? Then when you leave, and I've done this now 5 consecutive years, I take 4 weeks off. Last year I took 9 weeks off, but I take time off, I leave the business. And then when I come back, anything that's not working is the next system I need to resolve. But here's my favorite part. I was terrified to do this 5 years ago, Daniel, because I thought my employees would say, Mike, you go to the beach and now we're sweating our butts off to serve you. It's all about you making money. You're greedy. That's not what happened. When I left, I told them I'm leaving because I want this business to run itself. They said, you trust us? You're empowering us. I came back from vacation. They said, we've taken on roles we never thought we would. We're growing. Thank you for this. Now, this is the most amazing part. And I share this in the new book. Starting 2 years ago, we deployed that every employee takes a 4-week vacation, which sounds like a grand benefit for our employees, which it is. But everyone now has to have a backup. So right now, Jeremy's on vacation. He just left for a 4-week vacation. He's our social media guy. He has Izzy and Jenna as backups, and they're trained up to it. Same thing with Kelsey. When she leaves, other people are backing her up. What this means is one day if Jeremy gets sick or decides to take a job somewhere else, we can move on unabated because we have backups for everybody. It's building redundancy.
So you start doing that for you, and then you start pushing your team for them to
then push the team for it. Yeah. And it's, it's a paid vacation. So we're recruiting, we got employees coming from other countries asking to work here because the word's slowly getting out. We just had an employee come from Spain to work with us because she heard of the reputation we had.
Wow.
Yeah. She was awesome.
Culture. Tell me a little bit about culture. You work with a lot of small business. And when I talk to them about culture, they have no idea.
Yeah.
What is culture at that level? And how can you start building this?
It's the assembly of community. I'm actually starting to, culture has been defined as set of values, kind of how we behave. Community is the engagement of a diverse group of people with a common cause. We live here. This is meant for something. So what a small business can do is start thinking about your business as a community. First of all, and this is a known fact, but it's probably executed in many cases, what's the bigger cause for your business? I simplify entrepreneurship, but the bigger reason I exist is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. My employees, some of them care about that, some it's okay, but all of them know that's why we're here. That's what this community is doing. So you moved into town, and we don't expect you to be here forever. As long as you're here, now you know what the core purpose is of our town. The second thing is we also do one-on-one meetings. Now listen, at this office, we have 10 employees. At our other building, 15. So we have 25 employees. We're tiny. But we have one-on-one meetings with every employee every single week. What I found is when you have a vision for where you want your business to be, that is really dictated by the owner. I want to have a $10 million business. I want it to do certain things. My colleagues don't care about that. They care about their own personal visions and dreams. Someone wants to buy a house. Someone wants to travel the world. Every week, we're meeting with them and learning about their own vision and how their job is marching them towards satisfying their own personal goals along with the corporate goals. And that brings in a great engagement. It's not just about what the company's going to achieve. It's what we are collectively as a human group going to achieve.
Let me ask some question about you as an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur like us. You run a business, you have 25 employees, like you're growing your business, ideas, clients, everything. What do you enjoy about being an entrepreneur?
I love creating jobs for other people. I can't say that's what I liked before. And I love that I get to do the two things I like. So when a business can run itself, you and I as business owners have the right to reinsert ourselves in a way that's joyful. Like that's why we started this thing in part. So I love the fact I get to write books, and I love the fact I get to speak or be a proponent, a cheerleader for these ideas. That's what I love to do. All these other things, I used to say, gosh, who wants to do invoicing? I think that sucks. Therefore, everyone thinks it sucks. And that's not the reality. There's some people say, I just want to come in and do invoicing. I get joy from that. Well, I love the fact that I can create opportunities for people to live their joy. I think the number one job of entrepreneurs is not to do the job, it's to create jobs for others. We are the providers for our economy. So the fact that I have created, 24 other positions here is a big deal. That gives me a lot of satisfaction.
And what is the toughest thing of being an entrepreneur? What's the hardest?
I guess the hardest thing is, hard times. So no one is invincible to a changing environment. I'm not saying it's the economy. I'm just saying businesses grow and wane. And when a business is struggling, and I had to make the decision to let people go to save the ship, but how to let someone go, that's been the most painful stuff, because sometimes people are going to have to leave the organization, not because of their fault, but because I didn't navigate the circumstances around me. And the only way to save the business is by letting them go. That feels horrible when I have to do that. It's rare, but I've done that, and it sucks.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
It's part of being an entrepreneur.
Sucks.
So last two questions just to close this. Imagine you have a young guy graduating from college, and she says, I want to be an amazing entrepreneur. What do I do? What do you recommend her? Where do you start?
Yeah. So what I would start is I would work for a small business first. You can gain so many insights. And our own company here in this office, there's 10 of us here. There's 3 people with their own business. We encourage people to start your own business, your own side hustle, and we'll support you in it. My personal assistant has a business where they are trying to have an environmental impact by reducing disposable products like dish soaps and so forth. So they have a recharging business they've started. And by working here, she can observe and ask tons of questions. So work for a small business, because you'll learn so much about running a small business. And then the second tip I'd have is then go in, but when you go in and do it, go in with actually less, don't seek to master the industry. Just go in with a little basic understanding of the industry. Because if you know the industry too well, you're going to comply with the industry standards, and that's going to hurt you. If you only know the basics of the industry, you're going to redefine it, because you're not going to know the norms or the unwritten rules, and you'll probably be more successful because you're ignorant of how everyone else is doing it.
Interesting. And last question, you get an entrepreneur, someone that already has a business, probably 3 to 5 employees, and they're stuck. They've been stuck for a couple of years. They just have no idea what to do. What do you recommend them?
Yeah. So the first thing is that entrepreneur is usually the impedance. The most common stuck business that's under 7 employees is the entrepreneur is trying to control everything. So the first thing is remove the entrepreneur. And if they're terrified saying, I can't leave, okay, now we know the problem. We don't have empowered employees. We don't have good systems. All the systems are in your head. We need to extract that. And I start forcing them to leave the business. The funny thing is it's a big challenge to the ego. Now I went through this myself. What sprung us from a few employees now to 25, I'm one of them. But what did that was me leaving the business. I was controlling and doing everything. When I left, it started to get free, but my ego inserted myself again. I said, but I need to be needed. And I came back and I started to interrupt our growth. So leaving the business is not the same as abandoning the business. It means that I changed from that kind of superhero swoop in to what I call the supervisionary, someone that sees where we're headed, like Bezos, for example, making decisions today that will impact us 3 years from now, and then organizing the people to get us there. If a business is struggling, it's because the entrepreneur is interfering in almost every case.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, get out of the way. And it's not easy. It sounds like walk. I'm not saying abandon. I'm saying get out of the way, which are two different things.
So when I start coaching companies, I always interview 2 or 3 team members before I start. And they tell me this all the time. Get my boss off my back.
Yeah.
They already hired me, told me what do I need to do, gave me KPIs, everything. And then they don't allow me to do it.
Yeah.
Like, give them the space.
Yeah. And we wield this authority, this strength we don't know. Like think about you or I punching a wall or Superman punching a wall. It's the punch looks like the same speed, but Superman punches through the wall plus 10 others because he has such a super punch. We have the same thing. When I send a message saying, hey, I'm thinking of an idea, my colleagues are like, oh my God, Mike has an idea, jump on it, abandon everything. It's implied that the boss is the authority. So even though we feel we're not wielding this control, we are.
All right. So guys, Clockwork, please show the new updated.
Revised, expanded, yeah.
This is
lighter
the old one,
blue.
that's the new one. So get the new one with the orange strip.
Right.
That's the new one. When's it going to be published, by the way?
August 23rd is the release day.
Look forward to read it. This was awesome for me to read. I'm a systems person. I was a terrible entrepreneur because I didn't have systems. And then I started with all the journey that you and I went through.
Yes.
And now I'm all about systems.
Oh my God, they're the best.
And they tell you exactly all the things that you have to start building and how to see it strategically and structurally. So Mike, thank you very much for doing what you do. I love your books. I'm a huge fan. I have like 10 of your books, 9 or it's now, right? Or 8 or 9?
Yeah, 9 books now with my children's book. Yeah.
Pumpkin Plan started long time ago.
Yeah.
Congrats, 15 years and 8 or 9 books. Congrats and thank you for what you do. Small business all around the world, we really need you. So
thank you, brother.
Thank you. Bye.